Let me start with something bold. No single food cures cancer. No berry, no spice, no vegetable. If anyone tells you otherwise, you should pause. But here's the truth. Your body is constantly repairing DNA. You experience thousands of tiny errors daily from metabolism, sunlight, and even breathing. The real question is not which food cures cancer. It is which foods support the body's natural repair systems and reduce the environment that allows cancer to thrive. While no food is a magic bullet, some influence oxidative stress, inflammation, insulin levels, mitochondrial function, and gene expression, factors that affect risk and aging. So when you hear the phrase starve cancer, what does that actually mean? Cancer cells depend heavily on glucose and specific growth signals. They thrive in environments of high insulin, chronic inflammation, and poor immune surveillance. The goal is making the internal environment less favorable for abnormal growth. The goal is not attacking cancer with food. It is shifting the metabolic terrain, making the internal environment less favorable for uncontrolled cell growth. Some foods help that shift. In this series, I'll explain how DNA repair works, which nutrients support enzymes, and how blood sugar influences growth, because the truth is more powerful than hype. Let's talk about DNA repair, because this is where the real science begins. Your DNA is not static. It is constantly being copied, read, repaired, and maintained. Every time a cell divides, your DNA has to replicate. And every time it replicates, small errors can occur. Fortunately, your body has built-in repair systems. These include mechanisms like base excision repair, nucleotide excision repair, mismatch repair, and double-strand break repair. You don't need to memorize those names. What matters is this: your body already knows how to fix damaged DNA. But those repair systems require nutrients. They require energy. They require antioxidants. They require methyl donors. They require mineral cofactors. When nutrient status is poor, repair efficiency decreases. When oxidative stress is high, DNA damage increases. That's when risk accumulates. Now here's something important. Cancer does not begin with one mutation. It begins when damage outpaces repair. So the strategy is simple. Reduce damage. Support repair. Calm inflammation. Let's talk about nutrients involved in DNA repair. First, folate. Folate plays a role in DNA synthesis and methylation. Low folate levels are associated with impaired DNA repair and increased mutation risk. Next, vitamin B12. B12 works closely with folate in methylation pathways. Methylation affects gene expression and DNA stability. Deficiencies can disrupt genomic integrity. Now let's talk about minerals. Zinc is required for many DNA repair enzymes. Without adequate zinc, repair proteins cannot function properly. And then there's something critical: antioxidants. Reactive oxygen species damage DNA. Antioxidants neutralize them. Vitamin C, vitamin E. Polyphenols from plants. These compounds reduce oxidative DNA damage. Now notice something. None of this is dramatic. No food repairs DNA overnight, but nutrient adequacy supports the systems that do. Focus on the long-term health of your cells. Now let's talk about one of the most studied plant compounds in cancer research. Not because it cures cancer, but because it influences how genes are expressed. The compound is sulforaphane, and it's found in cruciferous vegetables like broccoli, broccoli sprouts, Brussels sprouts, kale, and cabbage. Sulforaphane does something fascinating. It activates a pathway in your cells called NRF2. NRF2 is often described as the master antioxidant switch. When activated, it increases the production of your body's own antioxidant enzymes. Not just dietary antioxidants, your internal ones. Enzymes like glutathione, superoxide dismutase, and catalase. These enzymes reduce oxidative stress inside cells, and reduced oxidative stress means less DNA damage over time. Now here's another important effect. Sulforaphane also influences phase 2 detoxification enzymes in the liver. That means your body becomes more efficient at neutralizing and eliminating harmful compounds. Eliminating potentially harmful compounds before they damage DNA, and there's more. Some laboratory studies suggest sulforaphane may affect cancer cell metabolism. Cancer cells often rely heavily on glycolysis, rapid glucose breakdown, even when oxygen is present. This is known as the Warburg effect. Certain plant compounds appear to interfere with these metabolic pathways in experimental settings. But here's the key word: experimental. Lab studies are not the same as clinical cures. Still, these findings suggest that certain foods can shift cellular signaling in meaningful ways. Now here's something practical. Broccoli sprouts contain significantly higher levels of sulforaphane than mature broccoli. Just a small serving can activate antioxidant pathways. Light steaming preserves these compounds better than overcooking. The goal isn't eating one giant serving once, it's consistent intake. Small, regular exposure to bioactive plant compounds. The goal is consistent intake. If this helped you understand cellular health, subscribe for more straight, practical health breakdowns. Now let's move to another compound that gets a lot of attention. You've probably heard of it, resveratrol. It's found in red grapes, blueberries, peanuts, and yes, red wine. But before anyone pours a large glass, let's clarify. The amount in wine is small. You'd need unrealistic amounts to match laboratory studies. This is not an excuse to drink excessively. Resveratrol influences sirtuins, proteins involved in DNA repair and inflammation regulation. Some researchers refer to sirtuins as longevity regulators. When activated, sirtuins help cells respond to stress more efficiently. In experimental models, resveratrol appears to activate these pathways, improving cellular resilience. Resveratrol also has antioxidant and anti-inflammatory effects. By lowering inflammatory signaling, you reduce the background stress on cells that leads to DNA damage. Cancer cells often exploit growth signals like high insulin and chronic inflammation. Resveratrol has been studied for its potential to interfere with some of these signaling pathways. But again, this is supportive biology, not a cure. Eating berries will not eliminate cancer. However, polyphenol-rich diets are consistently linked to lower rates of chronic disease. Polyphenols do more than act as antioxidants. They influence gene expression, modulate cellular communication, and help maintain genomic stability. Balance is key. These compounds don't directly repair DNA. They support the environment in which DNA repair happens efficiently. Thank you for following along. Stay healthy. Let's talk about something that rarely gets mentioned in flashy headlines, but it's one of the most important pieces of the puzzle. Blood sugar. If you've ever heard the phrase, starve cancer, this is usually what people are referring to. Cancer cells tend to consume glucose at a higher rate than normal cells. Many tumors rely heavily on rapid glucose metabolism. This is why PT scans use radioactive glucose to detect cancer activity. Cancer cells light up because they absorb more glucose. So naturally, people ask, if cancer feeds on sugar, can I just cut sugar and starve it? It's not that simple. Your body maintains blood glucose levels tightly regulated. Even if you stop eating sugar, your liver can produce glucose. You cannot eliminate glucose from your bloodstream completely. However, chronically elevated blood sugar and insulin create an environment that supports cellular overgrowth. High insulin increases signaling through pathways like mTOR, IGF-1, and PI3K. These pathways stimulate growth and cell division. In healthy cells, this is controlled. In mutated cells, it can accelerate progression. So instead of thinking about starving cancer, think about this. Stabilizing insulin reduces growth signaling noise, and certain foods help stabilize blood sugar dramatically. Let's talk about them. High-fiber foods, legumes, oats, chia seeds, vegetables. Fiber slows glucose absorption. It reduces insulin spikes. Next, healthy fats, olive oil, nuts, avocado. Fats slow digestion and improve satiety, which prevents rapid glucose swings. And then there's protein. Adequate protein prevents blood sugar crashes that lead to overeating refined carbohydrates. The goal is metabolic calm, stable glucose, stable insulin, reduced inflammatory signaling. That metabolic environment is less favorable for uncontrolled growth. Let's talk about inflammation. Not the kind you feel when you twist your ankle. The silent kind. Low grade, persistent, systemic. Chronic inflammation is one of the strongest drivers of DNA damage. Inflammatory molecules release reactive oxygen species. Those reactive molecules collide with DNA. When that happens repeatedly, mutations accumulate. Remember what we said earlier. Cancer risk increases when damage outpaces repair. Chronic inflammation increases damage, so calming inflammation reduces the background stress on your cells. Now here's where certain foods become powerful. Let's start with turmeric. Turmeric contains curcumin, a compound studied extensively for its anti-inflammatory properties. Curcumin influences pathways like NF-κB, a major inflammatory switch inside cells. When NF-κB is overactive, inflammatory genes are expressed more aggressively. Curcumin appears to help modulate that activity. Less inflammatory signaling, less oxidative damage, less cellular stress. Next, green tea. Green tea contains EGCG, epigallocatechin gallate. EGCG has been shown in laboratory studies to reduce oxidative stress, influence cell signaling, and support apoptosis, the process where damaged cells self-destruct safely. Apoptosis is critical. When cells with damaged DNA fail to undergo apoptosis, they can continue dividing abnormally. Certain plant compounds appear to support this protective mechanism. Now let's talk about something simple but powerful: colorful vegetables. Red peppers, carrots, spinach, purple cabbage. These contain carotenoids and flavonoids. They neutralize reactive oxygen species before they damage DNA. Again, not dramatic, not overnight, but consistent intake builds resilience. Here's the theme emerging. Sulforaphane activates internal antioxidant systems. Resveratrol influences longevity pathways. Fiber stabilizes insulin. Turmeric calms inflammatory switches. Green tea reduces oxidative stress. These foods create an internal environment where damage is reduced, repair is supported, growth signals are moderated. Now let's talk about something deeper, something inside every single cell: your mitochondria. Mitochondria are often called the power plants of the cell. They produce ATP, the energy currency that fuels every repair process in your body, including DNA repair. Efficient mitochondria are critical for genetic stability. If mitochondrial function declines, energy production drops and oxidative stress increases. That oxidative stress, as we've discussed, damages your DNA. Protection is key. So protecting mitochondria protects genetic stability. Now here's where food comes back into the picture. Certain nutrients directly support mitochondrial function and efficiency. Let's start with coenzyme Q10, found in small amounts in foods like sardines, mackerel, and organ meats. It plays a central role in the energy chain. CoQ10 helps cells generate energy efficiently. Efficient mitochondria produce fewer reactive oxygen species, meaning less oxidative leakage and less DNA damage. Next, alpha-lipoic acid, found in spinach, broccoli, and organ meats. ALA is versatile, being both water and fat-soluble, working throughout the cell. This means it can work throughout the cell and also helps regenerate other antioxidants, like vitamin C and vitamin E. It's a foundational part of your defense system. Then there's something incredibly important: magnesium. It's required for ATP production. Without it, energy metabolism and DNA repair slow down significantly. Cancer cells often have dysfunctional mitochondria, relying instead on fast glucose breakdown called glycolysis. Healthy mitochondria create an environment less favorable for abnormal growth. So again, the goal is not attacking cancer. It's strengthening normal cellular metabolism to better resist mutation-driven chaos. Metadata matters. When your cells are metabolically strong, your whole body is more resilient. Stay with me as we continue to build this system. Thank you for watching. This part is extremely important, because if we don't say this clearly, the entire conversation becomes misleading. Food cannot cure cancer. Food cannot replace surgery. Food cannot replace chemotherapy. Food cannot replace radiation. Food cannot replace targeted therapies. Cancer is complex. It involves genetic mutations, immune evasion, abnormal signaling pathways, angiogenesis, and metabolic rewiring. No single spice or vegetable overrides that complexity. So when someone says, "This food starves cancer," what they usually mean, if they understand biology, is this: certain foods may help create a metabolic and inflammatory environment that is less supportive of uncontrolled growth. That's very different from curing disease. Here's another critical point. In advanced cancer, metabolic demands are different. Unintended weight loss can be dangerous. Muscle wasting can occur. Aggressive dietary restriction may do harm. Nutrition should support strength and treatment, not replace evidence-based care. Extreme anti-cancer diets without medical supervision can weaken the body. Now let's flip the perspective. If food can't cure cancer, why does it matter so much? Because prevention matters. Because progression speed matters. Because recurrence risk may be influenced by metabolic health. Diet influences insulin levels, inflammation, immune function, oxidative stress, and hormonal balance. Those are all factors that shape cellular behavior. Nutrition shapes terrain. Medicine targets disease. Both matter. Here's the balanced truth. You cannot out-eat an aggressive tumor, but you can influence the environment in which cells operate. And long before cancer develops, food patterns influence risk. Focus on balance, evidence, and overall systemic health. Let's bring this all together clearly, without hype, without exaggeration. No single food repairs DNA like a mechanic fixing a broken wire. No vegetable starves cancer, the way turning off electricity shuts down a building. That's not how biology works. But here's what is true. Your body repairs DNA every single day. Your cells constantly monitor for mutations. They correct copying errors. They neutralize oxidative damage, and they trigger self-destruction in severely damaged cells. And those systems depend on energy, micronutrients, antioxidants, stable blood sugar, and low inflammation. The real power of food is not in dramatic headlines, it's in cumulative influence. Sulforaphane activates antioxidant defense systems. Resveratrol influences gene regulation pathways. Fiber stabilizes insulin signaling. Turmeric calms inflammatory switches. Green tea reduces oxidative stress. Magnesium and CoQ10 support mitochondrial energy production. These compounds don't act like chemotherapy. They create a more stable internal environment. And cancer is more likely to emerge when the internal environment is chronically inflamed, metabolically unstable, oxidatively stressed, and nutrient deficient. So instead of asking, what food starves cancer, ask, what dietary pattern reduces the conditions that allow abnormal cells to thrive? That question leads to a powerful answer: a diet rich in whole plant foods, adequate protein, healthy fats, minimal refined sugar, stable metabolic patterns, and reduced inflammatory load. Not extreme, not dramatic, but consistent. Cancer risk is influenced by decades of cellular stress, and decades of supportive nutrition matter. Prevention is not exciting, but it is powerful. You don't need a miracle food. You need metabolic stability, inflammation control, nutrient sufficiency, and medical screening when appropriate. That's the truth behind the headline, and the truth is stronger than the myth. If you care about protecting your health after 60, subscribe now. I post weekly evidence-based videos like this.